June was not a crazy month for me. I read 5 books this month, and within those 5 books, I've had a few that were pretty good. So if you're looking for a few new books to add to your TBR, I've got your back. But before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe and let me know what books you read this month down in the comments. Now we're going to start off super strong with the books that I really enjoyed, and then we're just going to kind of derail from there. One of those books was Margot's Got Money Troubles. This was a book that I read in a vlog recently, and it absolutely blew my mind. I didn't think that I was going to like it as much as I did, but it definitely held more weight than I expected it to. This book is about a young girl who doesn't really have a lot of guidance in her life, but she knows she wants to be something. She wants to do something. So she enrolls herself into her local community college, and within the first semester, she unfortunately gets pregnant by her married English professor, like within the first semester. And now not only is she having to raise this child on her own because he obviously bailed, but she's also dropping out of college. She has no way to pay her rent, and her parents are nowhere to be found in the emotional help capacity. So now she's on her own trying to figure out what to do, but Margot's not a victim. She's like, you know what? I have agency over my life. I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do. This is a modern woman. She's trying to figure out how she's going to survive and take care of her new child. So she's like, you know what? I'm going to turn to OnlyFans. I'm going to turn to the internet, see what I can do, how to make some money on my own. And with that as the premise of the book, I genuinely did not believe that I was going to get a lot of hard-hitting life insight or advice or takeaways from anything, but this book carries way more weight than it lets on. I ended up rating this book a 4-star. It's clever, it's raw, it's unfiltered, and it really does challenge our comfort zones as the modern reader. But within this book, it not only talks about minimum wage and how it does not cover any living cost, it also talks about being a single mother. It talks about parasocial relationships, what it means to have a life online in the 21st century. And it also talks a lot about like making yourself a commodity as a sex worker and what that does to you, not only as an individual, but also to your family and things like that. Not that it's a good or bad thing, just a social commentary on both the pros and the cons of it. And that's what I really enjoyed. It was just a completely unbiased, raw, realistic view of what that kind of life is. And I thought it was so interesting. I learned so much. I had to face some of my own biases, my own thoughts, and I also learned a lot of other people's thought process on the other side of things as well. And I thought it made me a lot more empathetic, a lot more aware of certain things, and I felt like I was a different person once I got to the end of the book. Now, it wasn't perfect. It's a very short book. It's nothing crazy, but it was definitely a thought-provoking book that I think is necessary for us to read, but without making you feel like someone's lecturing you or sitting you down for hard conversations and hard topics. It's more like in a fun, passive way. So it makes it more digestible and easier to read, easier to comprehend and learn the lessons from it without feeling like someone's pointing the finger at you type of thing. So I really enjoyed it. Then I also read The Wedding People. Now, if you've watched any of my recent videos, you know I'm obsessed with this book. I did rate it a 6 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this one. I really did. It's everything I love about literary fiction. I literally read this like 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and it still makes me smile. Like, I still think about those characters. I think about how they impacted each other. I think about the writing, the quirkiness of it, but the real life lessons that you got out of it, the depth that was completely surprising, by the way. I thought it was going to be a quirky, fun literary fiction. That's what I love. But it completely blindsided me in the best way, though. It's about this woman. She's a professor. She has a very boring life. It's not really going the way she wants it to at all. She's fresh out of COVID. She's got a lot of things going on in her personal life that she's just kind of sick of. So she shows up randomly at a destination wedding, and once she gets there, she has a few interactions with the bride, and we get to follow their story and growth together as the reader, and it's just so wonderful. It really was wonderful. But I will say, even though it's fun and quirky and a little satirical, there is some heavy topics going into it. So I would read the trigger warnings if there's anything that you're kind of worried about. But even still, genuinely, I do believe that it's worth the read. I learned so much. I loved all the characters. Seriously, I loved everything about this book. Now, I know I mentioned this in my mid-year wrap-up, but I love this book and this author so much because she walks this rare line of like giving you weighty, emotional depth, but also giving you dark satirical humor and observational humor. And the way that she balances both of those things without overpowering each other, like one doesn't overshadow the other, is just perfection to me. It's everything I love about reading. And I think that's the perfect mixture you need, especially when you're talking about these very heavy topics. She's talking about suicidal ideation. She's talking about not being good enough. She's talking about depression and all of these other things. And with those heavy topics, sometimes it can be daunting as a reader to tackle those, especially if you're going through something like that. And I think that Allison, as the author, is very aware of that, because when she presents these topics to you, she presents all of the sides, not just the ugly bits, but also like what led her to this in a very comedic way, so that the delivery helps you digest the information. And I think that was the perfect balance in this book. Literally a 6-star read. Literally a 6-star read. I still think about it to this day. It still makes me smile to this day. I cannot recommend this enough. The plot unfolds in this perfectly chaotic but very emotionally grounded way, and I also genuinely enjoyed how she tackled the wedding industrial complex without sounding so preachy. It was very satirical but still deeply sincere, and I really enjoyed that. And the way that this author handles longing, desire, grief, emotional growth, she does it so perfectly. Like literally, I cannot say enough about this author. It makes me want to read her other book, which is Notes on Your Sudden Disappearance. I'm sorry. I know that came out before The Wedding People, but because of this book, it made me immediately look at her backlist, make me see anything else that she's written recently that has the same vibe as this, because I thought it was literary genius. And I think that you should give it a shot. But you know what I think you can skip on? It's not bad, but it's nothing to write home about. It is A Killing Cold. This was a thriller that I read with my book club this month, or for the month of June, and I gave it a 3-star. It was just average. She was so average. And the reason why it makes me so sad is because I genuinely thought she was going to be a good time, like a 4-star good time, 5-star good time. And it honestly had all the trappings to do so. Sorry if you hear anything. It is currently 4th of July. Today is Friday, 4th of July, and I completely forgot that we're doing fireworks. Everyone does fireworks now. I don't know how I forgot that. And I was like, oh, let me just film at 8 p.m. And here we are. So I'm so sorry if you hear that. Now, this book had all the trappings to be something really incredible. It's about Theodora. She's going to see her now fiance's family for the first time ever, by the way. They are moving very quickly in this relationship. She met him in college, and then all of a sudden, 6 months later, they're engaged. So at this point, she hasn't met his family for 6 months. Red flag number 1. But no matter, she's like, you know what? He's from a very wealthy family. I understand if they want to take things slow with meeting her. So within those 6 months, she finally gets up the courage, or he thinks that she's good enough now to finally meet his family. And so they go to their estate in Idlewood, and it is this really snowy, beautiful place on a mountain. It's very secluded. There's no service, and it's just their family there. She goes to finally meet the family, and the vibes are off. Everyone's kind of treating her weird, which she kind of expected. It's a very short turnaround for this wedding to happen. And of course, because they're wealthy, like billionaire with a B wealthy, they're like, you know what? Is this girl only here for his money? And that's what Theo was thinking. So she's like, you know what? The vibes are off, but I kind of get it. I think I'd be a little bit more worried if the vibes weren't off, because this is their son, this is their sibling, their brother, whatever. Of course, they're going to be a little protective of him. But as she gets there and she realizes she has no service, she realizes, you know what? It's more than just the vibes of his money. Other things are going on. But Theo, she is not a person who had a very happy childhood. She was adopted. Her adoptive parents were terrible to her, and she doesn't have any real memories from the first years of her life. But as she's there, she slowly starts to remember things about her life, and she realizes, wait a darn minute, I've been here before. And when that happens, that's when the story starts to snowball, and we see that there are other things at play than just her trying to marry Dalton. And so with that premise, it sounds absolutely incredible. We all thought it was going to be absolutely incredible. And the thing is, it wasn't bad. It just was so lackluster for a few reasons. First of all, Thea was the narrator of this story, the main character, and she is an unreliable narrator, which could work in your favor for a thriller, but she was so unreliable that the reason why no one figured out the plot twist towards the end is because she was quite literally wrong about things. She's feeding us information as the reader. She is the narrator, and so she's convicted. She believes these things to the point to where you believe these things. She's saying them as facts, not as speculation. So then when you go in as the reader, you're like, okay, well, because this is a fact, I need to check these off my list, because there's no way that these things can be true and this person can be the suspect. So then when you get to the end of the book and she's changing her mind constantly, you're like, well, wait a dang minute, which one is right? Which one are you so sure about? And so I felt like the author used that as a plot device to confuse us as the reader, but it didn't really show real depth in the story. It just showed that she was confusing us as the reader. We couldn't figure it out because she was feeding us misinformation, which I felt was kind of a cop-out for having a real thriller, but that wasn't the only reason why I felt that way. It was also because towards the end, she gave us about 6 darn million different plot twists just to really throw us off her scent. And that pissed me off. That pissed me off as a reader because I felt like that was a cheap shot. I felt like first she's telling us he's the person, then she's the person, then he's the person. No, then again back to her. Then actually, no, wait, you don't have this piece of information, over and over and over again. And I get it. Thrillers are supposed to have plot twists. That's what makes them fun. But I'm telling you, there were so many towards the end. Like, there was a very small amount time left in this book, and she gave us back to back to back to back to back to back to back. And I was like, you're doing too much. Everyone felt like she was doing too much. And again, I felt like that was a plot device to confuse us as a reader, just so that she can say, well, no one can guess the plot twist in my story. No one's gonna guess who actually did it. And I was just like, that's a cheap shot. I just don't appreciate that. And because of that, because she was so unreliable, she wasn't even like a person you genuinely wanted to root for, because again, she did have a traumatic childhood, and that was so sad. And we were trying to be empathetic, but because of these other things that we're learning about her and the way that she's moving, the way that she's talking to us as the reader, because we're getting her inner dialogue, we're like, I don't really like you. Like, you know what I mean? And that makes it hard to root for the main character. And I will say, I will play devil's advocate. Sometimes it is nice to have a main character you hate, or just a character that you hate. You love to hate them, but it wasn't that kind of hate. It was just like, you were just put off by her. Like, there were certain things that she would do, certain coincidences that would happen, and I'm just like looking at her theoretically, like in my mind, like, Theo, what are you doing? You know what I mean? And it wasn't a good time. Everything just felt like, meh. It was just like meh. It wasn't bad, but like meh. If you want to read it, I will say one of the top things that I enjoyed about this book is the atmosphere. The author did a great job of setting the scene. It's snowy, it's isolated, it's scary, it's cold, it's bitter. I loved that scenery and that imagery, but that was kind of the only thing that held it together for me. I didn't necessarily like any of the characters, and I didn't enjoy hating any of the characters either. It was just like we were following along this story, and we just got to the end, and I was like, ugh. And plus, additionally, that ending, what the heck was that ending? It wasn't nothing it was just like lackluster. Everything was lackluster, and I just couldn't believe. I said this in book club. If you want my hot takes, join the link down below. We do have a Patreon book club. I did say this live when we talked about it live, but personally, maybe she's better than me, but personally, the way she handled that ending isn't the way I would have handled that ending. That's all I'm saying. I would have chose the other option is all I'm saying. I don't know what that says about me, but that's all I'm saying. Then we have The Roommate, Risk by Talia Hibbert, and this is a book I have been yapping about all month just because I have mixed feelings, but like very conflicting mixed feelings, because originally I think I voted it as a 4-star, but now that I think about it in hindsight, I really do believe it's a 3.75, and I hate doing like the decimal thing, but it's true. If it's true, it's true. And with this book, I loved the male main character, but the female main character, she was so problematic to me. Now, this is a romance. It follows these two people, Jasmine and Raoul, and it's set in England, and so I love that they have accents and cute little things, but they met in college, and he has been pining for this woman since he met her in college. They've known each other for 7+ years. He's been in love with her for 7+ years. We love a man that yearns. But the thing is, Jasmine is emotionally unavailable. She has some trauma in her past that doesn't allow her to have any relationships. So she's never had any relationships. That doesn't mean she's abstinent. She's out there. She's out and about doing what she wants, as she should, but she's doing it as an emotional device for herself. Just using that as validation for herself instead of actually doing the emotional work. And we see that, and how she actually does need to do emotional work and maybe go to therapy with how she treats Raoul. Raoul, he's so perfect. He carried the book for me. I literally love this man. And yes, he needed to do some work too, but it was not on the scale that Jasmine needed to do work on. And that's not a problem. Like, there's no rating or comparing trauma or anything like that. It's just the way that she dealt with her trauma, I felt like was very mean. And I think that as a main character, she almost like borderline bullied this man. I don't know. There was something about her that I just did not like, the way that she treated him. She was a very strong female lead, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there are times where her personality overpowered the situation. And a lot of the times you were trying to feel empathy for her as a character, but when she would do certain things, it made you like not really want to root for her. And it's crazy because towards the end, I really believed that she needed therapy more than a relationship, more than the love of her life. And he truly was the love of her life. He truly is the love of her life. But sometimes you're just not ready for that love. And she was just not ready for that love. And for Talia Hibbert's benefit, she showed us that as the reader and made sure that they had like some time to grow as characters, right? But by that point, I didn't resent her, but like I just wasn't fond of her by the time she finally got therapy and help and things like that. So that when we finally got her happily ever after towards the end, I'm like, good for Raul, because this man deserved it. He was so in love. So I love that man. I love that man. But Jasmine, I'm like, thank you for doing the work. Thank you for doing the work. But why would you put that man through that? I don't know. It was very, I felt like from the jump, she needed therapy. She knew that she needed therapy, but she was pretending not to. And I guess that makes it more realistic. I guess that, that is life. People do use relationships or people to avoid doing the internal work that they need to feel whole. And that's a very common situation. But just the way that it was written, it was very hard to love her because she was so not good to the people that loved her. Like sometimes she wasn't a bad person. She just was a hurt person, and hurt people. And it was very hard to accept that, but I could understand it logistically, but just emotionally, I just could not connect to her as much as I would have liked. But Raul, he carried the book for me. What can I say? He was perfect. I know that he had his own work, but what he needed to do with, I could have worked with. But I do like that this author wrote opposites attract really well. It was opposites attract, forced proximity, friends to lovers. There were so many good tropes in this book, but she wasn't trope dependent, and that's what I loved about this book. And overall, it was a very good read. I will say, surprisingly, I enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed it, but it is one of the spiciest books that I've ever read. Genuinely, it is extremely spicy. But the reason why I love the book, despite the spice, maybe even in fact because of the spice, is because it was earned intimacy. It wasn't like they just went into it. It wasn't like an excuse for a plot. She didn't use that as that type of a device. She didn't use it as a crutch. She used it to enhance the story. This man has been pining over this woman for 7 months. We deserve to see him get some. We deserve to see it, okay? And not only is she just telling us he's been in love with her for 7 years, he's been in love with her for 7 years, and we get to see it through flashbacks. Like, we get to see him just unsaid sets, just him showing his love through his actions. And I think that's why I was able to accept how spicy it was, because this man truly loved her, like genuinely. It wasn't something that I had to speculate or just believe the author as. It was very obvious through my own assessment of him as the character, and that's what I love. So that's why I didn't mind the spice. But if you're someone who just genuinely does not want spice in your books, she ain't for you. She's very spicy. Let me just say that. Last but not least, I read A Court of Mist and Fury. Now, this is the second book in the Court of Thorns and Roses series from Sarah J. Maas, and this is a book that was super popular when it first came out in 2016, I believe, and it had all the book girlies in a chokehold. I missed that entire boat, and honestly, I'm glad. But I will say I did not rate this book at all, because I believe that if I read this during the hype, I would have probably been feral. I would have probably been feral for it as well. And I understand why this is some people's holy grail, because you're looking back at it and you remember the emotions you had attached to this book. But genuinely, honest to God, reading it now after reading so many incredible romanticides and seeing the evolution of that genre, I know that it's not that good. I know that unbiasedly, like the structure of this book, the storytelling of this book, it's okay. Like, it's okay. It's nothing to write home about, but I did not rate it because I know for a fact if I read this during its hype, I would have said that this was a 6-star read. I would have said that this entire series had me in a chokehold. I would have been with the masses. So I completely understand it, but hindsight is always 20/20. So now that I'm looking back, now that I'm a little bit wiser as a person and as a reader, I can see it for what it was, and it's just subpar to me. So that's why I didn't feel comfortable rating this book, because I know that for a fact if I read this a few years ago, it would have also had me in a chokehold. Now, this book isn't terrible. I had a good time reading it. I liked Rysand, but it was very structural, strategical. I felt like it was very trope dependent, and even though it was a romantasy, the world building was very surface level. It was more about the romance, more about these two characters than it was about plot depth and actual fantasy elements, which is totally fine. There's no, I think it's more of a preference thing. I don't think it's something good or bad. It's just like a preference thing. But I do like more of a balance when I do read my romantasies. I do like the romance, and I would love like complex fantasy. Nothing crazy, like it doesn't have to be insane, but I do understand how this book could be a gateway to people reading romantasy or maybe just reading in general. So I appreciate it for the tool that it was, especially when it was first coming out, but I don't think that it stands the test of time type of thing. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, this is a book series following Feyre. She is a human girl, or was a human girl, who gets lost in the world of Fae. She has to battle certain things, try to help save the world, and she has this family back home that she's trying to protect with her life, and she falls into this new life and new world of the Fae. And we follow her through that entire transition, that journey, as well as her falling in love, finding herself, and trying to protect the people that she loves. At first she's with someone, and then she realizes that's not the perfect fit. Then she goes and finds her true person, and we get to see her fall in love, see her find herself, see her grow as an individual as well as a leader. And it's really nice to see, like on surface, on paper, it's pretty good, but I think the depth was lacking. I just think that now in my reading career, it's not something that would have affected me as much as I think it did or would have a few years ago. But again, I enjoyed it. I liked it. I listened to it on audiobook. I thought that the story was very predictable, but again, enjoyable. So I will not rate that one, but those are all the books that I read this month. I only read 5, but I feel like that's not crazy. It's not bad, but I do feel like next month I really want to read more. I want to be able to read more of the things that I enjoy. So I have a long list of great books that I definitely want to read. Not only the ones that I picked with y'all in my TBR video, I will link that down below. Also a few other ones that I picked up along the way. Now again, let me know what books that you read in the month of June, which ones you would recommend, which ones you think that people should stay away from. And as always, please continue to like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye. Also, so sorry for the Cleela that you're getting today. She's down and out, as you can tell. Didn't do my hair, face ain't got nothing on it, and I am breaking out right now. It's looking rough. I will admit. But thank you for being here anyway. I love you.